How do, and welcome back. Well, it's brew day today and I'm brewing the Crafty Brews, got the recipe here, Crafty Brews St Austell Proper Job extract beer kit. I was going to enjoy a proper job whilst I was brewing this, but all the shops are shut because today's actually Monday. So if I glance off to the side like this, I've got my laptop there, I'm actually watching the Queen's funeral. But I wanted to get this beer done, and so yeah, all the shops are shut, and they don't open till about 5 or 6 o'clock tonight for a few hours, so people can get bits and pieces. So I wasn't able to buy the St Austell Proper Job to enjoy as I'm brewing it. I did buy some actually on Saturday, but I drank them yesterday. It's such a good beer. I bought 2 bottles and I thought, I'll just try one and I'll save one for brew day. And of course you don't. It's such a nice beer, you just drink them both. So I've got 10 litres of water in here. They recommended 6. I was thinking of going for 12, but I thought no, I'll go for 10 litres of water, because usually this will brew off about 3 to 4 litres over an hour. So if I just use 6 litres, it says in the recipe, I'd only be left with a couple of litres at the bottom, and I didn't quite like that. So I'm using 10, and this is coming up now to a nice temperature. It's 80 degrees. In about another 10 degrees, about 90, I'm going to start adding the malt. But I thought it would be a good idea just to show you how I set up and prepare for brew day. Obviously I clean everything. I clean the kettle, even though I clean it after brew day, straight after. I always give it a wipe before brew day as well, so everything's clean. And when I was in my 20s, I used to be a chef, and one of the things I learned as a chef is something called mise en place. In other words, everything is laid out ready. Even though as a chef you're only maybe cooking food about 3 hours a day, for an evening meal for the people in the restaurant, your actual day is 10 hours long, and that bit at the front, those 7 hours, is you preparing, and you get everything laid out so that when the orders come in you don't have to be faffing around cutting up veg. It's all prepared, and that's what I actually do on brew day. So let me just try and alter this angle of this camera, if you can see. Here's all my malt. I don't really have to weigh them out because they're already in convenient 1 kilogram bags, but they're all here. But mostly is the hops. So if you remember, there were 4 packs of hops. Well, I've put them in these muslin bags. They're not pellet hops though, like I said. These are leaf hops. So this is edition number 1. I've got them all lined up. This is edition number 2, number 3 and number 4. And that's all the ingredients for this kit. Not only that, but I prepare everything in advance. So this has had a nice bleach bath yesterday, and it's had some Star San in it today, so it's spotlessly clean. That's ready. And what I really like is this this flower box, which is meant for balconies or windowsills. And in here, I don't think you can see on the camera, but I've got everything. I've got my spoon in there, although you don't really need to sanitize the spoon because you're using boiling water. But I keep it in there for convenience. So I've got the long spoon. I've also got some I don't know what you call these, from the kitchen where you pick things up, but I've got them, and I'll explain why I'm using them. And then of course I've got the pipe, which has been cleaned to transfer into the fermenter when it's finished. That's in there as well, in Star San. So there's Star San in here, so it keeps everything nice and clean. And finally, the strainer. Now, what the actual recipe said was to actually put the hops into here. Well, actually transfer from the kettle to the fermenter via a strainer, and of course this will collect all the hop particles. Now I'm using muslin bags, so what I'm going to do when it's finished is take out the muslin bags with the kitchen tweezer things and just pop them in here, and then I'll pour water over the top, about 5 litres of water, and that will get more flavour out of the hops. That's what they suggested, so that's what I'm going to do. Let me just move this camera angle back up. So there you go. So that's how I prepare. And even the water, because I don't have a water source in the garage, so I use this 10 litre jerry can. I've even got that filled up ready. I'll use about half of that in the fermenter, and then I'll transfer on top of it through the hops, and then I'll top up after it's fully transferred. So it's called, in the restaurant trade, it's called mise en place. Everything is ready so that when this gets up to temperature, I'm not running around thinking, oh I need this, oh I need that. Everything I need for brew day is here, and yeah, that's how I prepare. So I'm going to wait for this to get up to temperature, and then I'll come back and we'll add the malt. Well, the water's now at about 90 degrees, just over, so it's close to a boil, and it's at this temperature I like to add the dry malt, because if it's boiling I find it clumps up really badly. You get these almost like concrete balls and they're hard to break up. I don't find it does that half as much if you add the malt when it's just off the boil, about 90 degrees. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now the recipe said to use 1 bag in 6 litres. I've got 10, so I'm going to add a little bit more of this. I'm not going to weigh it, just judge it, maybe about half. And there we are. No clumping. The only thing to do now is to keep an eye on it. Malt is like milk when you boil it, and it will boil over, even in a vessel this size. There's only 10 litres in here, and this is a 20 litre vessel. It will fill that 10 litres. Well, 8 litres. After I've added the malt, there's now 12 litres of liquid in here now. So you've just got to keep moving the foam out of the way. That's all you've got to do. But what do you know, I forgot to press record. We've come up to a rolling boil, and I now have I've added the first hop edition, which is the bittering hop edition, and it's called, well, sorry, it contains 9 grams of Chinook and 9 grams of Willamette. Doesn't give the alpha acids, unfortunately, but it's those 2 hops. I've added them now. I did take some B-roll, so you'll see them going in, and now we just wait half an hour, and then we add the second edition, and that's pretty much it. This period now is very good to clean up, so if there's anything you don't need anymore, you know, clean it up, wipe the desk down. Always keep on top of these jobs, and then it makes the end of brew day so much easier. Well, I'm just watching the Queen. Her coffin is now being taken by the Navy to Westminster Cathedral. Historic day. I'm not really a monarchist or a royalist. I have no real opinion either way, but there's no doubt about it. Today is living history, so that's why I'm sort of like glued to the computer watching the events. Anyway, it's been half an hour now, so it's time for the second hop edition. which is, if you remember, 9 grams of Chinook, 9 grams Willamette, so that's the same as the bittering hop, but also 12 grams of Cascade. And here it is, ready to put into the vessel. And I'll give that another stir. And leave that for 15 minutes. So whilst these hops are boiling away, I thought I'd just explain a little bit about what we're actually doing. When you're doing an all grain, you have a process at the start called a mash, which is really where you steep all your grains. You steep your pale malt, and you steep your, which is your base malt, and any specialty malts that you're using, whether crystal, dark crystal, chocolate, all of that goes into a big tub, and you basically steep them for about an hour, and you keep the temperature at about 65 to 70 degrees, and this allows all of the sugars in the grains to come out into the liquid. Also, from your specialty grains, you're going to get the flavours of those grains, and you're going to get the colouring of those grains. This, after you've finished the mash, you then transfer into a kettle, and you bring all that to the boil, and then you add the hops. What we've done is basically just taken that out of the brew day. We've replaced the mash with dry malt extract. In other words, the maltster has done that process for you, and then dehydrated the liquid, which is called a wort, and turned it into a powder. Or if you're using liquid malt extract, they stop it early, the dehydration, and you end up with a sugary syrup solution. That's all it is, really. You've just taken that 1 hour, and sometimes I think people mash for even longer, out of your brew day, and you've replaced it. The maltster's done it for you, and you've replaced it with dry malt extract. So right at the start, as it was coming up to the boil, and I added the dry malt, that produces the wort. That's what you get from the mash tun, which is what the vessel's called in all grain brewing, the mash tun. What you drain off is the wort. You've created the wort by mixing the powdered dry malt extract into hot water. That's all we're doing. Great time saver, and you don't really notice. Now with kits, what we're doing now has all been done for you. The tin kits you can buy in shops, what we're doing now has all been done for you by the maker of that kit. What they do is they concentrate it down when it's all finished, and so all you've got to do is rehydrate it with water to get what will be our finished product. So that's the differences between kits, extracts and all grain. Right, there's another 5 minutes to go, so I'm getting back to watching the telly. Oh, just one more thing about the difference between extract and all grain. I mentioned specialty malts that you use in the mash to give flavour and colour. Now with this recipe there are no specialty malts. Usually they are with extract kits, but with this there's not. So we're just basically replacing the base malt, the pale malt, with dry malt extract. If there are specialty grains used, then we steep them, but only for about half an hour. You're only looking at a few 100 grams of specialty malts. Your biggest malt bill is your pale malt, and that's why it's sometimes called the base malt. It gives that malt backbone. Now if the recipe does have specialty malts, these will actually be grains that come in the kit. And what you do, as you've seen me do, I use a little sort of urn here. They call it a wine warmer, but it's a 5 litre tea urn. I just put the specialty grains into a muslin bag and put them in 5 litres of water. And because it's in an urn, I can actually control that temperature and keep it at about 65-70 degrees. And you just leave them for about half an hour. You don't have to mash like you do with an all grain. You're just steeping for about half an hour, and then you transfer that liquid into the kettle, top it up with water, bring it up to the boil, then add your dry malt extract. That's all the difference is. Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes time when we'll be adding the remainder dry malt extract. Actually, it's not the dry malt extract, it's hop pack number 3. So number 2's been in the boil now for 15 minutes. Now we're going to add 6 grams of Chinook, 18 grams of Willamette and 18 grams of Cascade. And these will boil for just 5 minutes. And then we add the DME. So in they go. Okay. Hot packet number 3 has been boiling for 5 minutes, and the instructions say we now add the rest of the malt extract. Now, why don't we add all the malt extract at the start? Because there's only 10 litres in here when I started, and the gravity would be far too high if we added all the 3 kilograms of dry malt extract. What you want in the kettle when you're boiling is a gravity similar to what will be in the fermenter when you top it up to 23 litres. If the gravity is too high in the kettle, you'll lose hop efficiency, especially for bittering and isomerization. You just won't get as bitter a beer, basically. So what you try and do is create a similar gravity in the kettle as you want in the fermenter, and that's why you only add half. Now that basically all the bittering's been done, it's safe to add the rest of the malt. So here we go. The problem now, of course, is that we've got all those hop bags in. Obviously, I think in the instructions they thought that you would actually be using the hops just thrown in, or you'd have used a hop spider. And the eagle-eyed amongst you may notice I've got a hop spider here, but I don't use it simply because I don't like them, and it's extra washing up. So yeah, I don't tend to like hop spiders. I've never had much success. I've always thought that they didn't seem to have the same bitterness or the same flavour when I've used a hop spider. I just like them in the muslin bags, and they can just go wherever they like in the liquid. So we'll just pour this last bag of malt in, and then what we'll do is we'll let this boil for 5 minutes, which is like a pasteurisation. In case there's any bugs, bacteria, that sort of thing in the dry malt, it'll kill them in that 5 minutes. And yes, we've got some dough balls because it's boiling hot water. Right, so that's coming back to the boil now very quickly, and we will let this boil for 5 minutes, and then we turn the heat off. We add hot pack number 4, and that's it, finished. Okay, the dry malt has been boiling for 5 minutes. The very last step now, well, for the actual boiling process, and that's to add hop pack number 4, and this contains 6 grams of Chinook, 30 grams of Willamette and 30 grams of Cascade. So I'm going to add them and then turn off the heat. So these are just going to steep in the hot water. There we go. They're just going to steep in the hot water. It says from 15 to 30 minutes. It recommends an ice bath at this time, but I don't have an ice bath in my garage, don't have water in my garage. So if you don't have an ice bath, it just says just let it sit for 15 to 30 minutes. I'm going to give it the full 30. And then we'll be ready to transfer. What I've also done, because the heat's been turned off now, all the hop bags float to the top, and obviously you're going to get hops outside of the wort, and you don't want that. You want to try and keep everything submerged. Whilst the water was boiling vigorously, that was fine because all the hops were being moved around and jostled around, and everything was in contact with the liquid. Now we've turned the heat off, it's come off the boil, and it's still, the wort is still, they've all floated up to the top. So what I've done is I've used those kitchen prongs, and I've got my spoon here, and I'm holding everything under the water, or under the wort, so that the hops are always in contact with the liquid. And every few minutes I'm just going to make sure I just move them around, making sure that all of the hops are in contact with the liquid. This is also now a good time just to clean up. If you haven't been cleaning as you've been going along, why not? It really does make your life so simple, and you've got nothing else to do whilst you've been waiting. Yes, if you haven't been keeping things clean as you've gone along, now's a good time because there's again nothing else to do. And if you haven't already sanitized, you know, your fermenter, again, why not? Mise en place, everything's done before you start. So yes, and well, it's been an hour now since I've started, just over actually, because videoing takes longer than you think. Double take, triple take. So this had a bleach bath yesterday. It's been thoroughly rinsed, and it got a spray of Star San all over it as well this morning. So this is ready now, my bucket. What I will do next is use this strainer to actually, I'm going to take the hop bags out and put them in the strainer over the fermenter, and then I'll pour maybe half of this. So there's 10 litres in here, so maybe about 5 litres. I will pour over the hop bags to get even more flavour out of them, and then we transfer the wort into the fermenter, and then just top it up to 23 litres. Right, okay, so I've got a bit of waiting to do because I've been a good boy and I've kept everything spotlessly clean as I've gone along. So I'll watch a bit more TV. She's in the church now. The sound of the choir was amazing. So yeah, I'm going to watch this. I'll see you in a bit. Well, here we are, half an hour later. So what I'm going to do is transfer all these bags of hops into this strainer. And just to be on the safe side, I've given everything another blast of Star San. It's all been clean, but it was about 2 hours ago now. And so I've just given everything a bit of a spray again, just to be on the safe side. It would be a shame to ruin the beer at this stage after we've done all this work. So it's always best to be safe. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is transfer these bags, oops, heavy bags, come on, they're not coming out. Might have to use my fingers, which I don't really want to, but there you go. Let it drain a little. Now they do actually say to put, actually no I forgot, yeah, they do actually say first of all to put in I think they said 8 litres into here, into your fermenter. I'm going to put in probably half of this, which will be 5 litres. There you go, that's enough. That's about 5, is it? Let's have a look on the side. Yeah, it is actually, about spot on. I think the reason they tell you to put some cold water in the fermenter is because some fermenters can't handle very hot liquid. So I think they just want you to put some cold water into the fermenter first, and then when you transfer on top of it, as soon as the hot wort hits the cold water, it cools. Because yeah, some fermenters, I think the Brewzilla fermenters, the pressure fermenters, I don't think they can handle. I don't think they can handle boiling hot water. So I think that's why they say to put some cold water in the fermenter first. My fermenter can, because it's the type of fermenter you usually get with kits when you're first starting out and you get a beginner's kit. And of course with kits you do use hot water from the kettle and you pour it straight into the fermenter. So I know mine can, but I just poured the cold water in because they told me to, basically. So these can go in and drain, give them a bit of a squeeze. And then what we're going to do is pour the rest of this water over the top of the bags. This is another big one. Over the top of the bags, as it says in the instructions, just to get every little bit of flavour out of the hops. So we'll do that now. That should be enough. I don't want it too much because we're only topping this up to 20 litres and there's 9 litres in here, so we actually boiled away 3 litres. That's good, so that's coming to about here. Well, there's 10 litres in there now. So what I'm going to do is get this tube and we'll just transfer. So I don't think you can actually see, but I've got the bucket here. I'm still got the strainer on. I'm letting the hops just drain into the liquid, and basically we just turn this on, turn the tap on, and it should come out. There it is. Oh, it's not coming out. What's gone on? Right, I might have to do the old-fashioned way. I don't know why that's not coming out. It should be. So I might have to do the old-fashioned way and pick it up and just pour it in. Silly me, the bucket was still too high, so it wasn't flowing. I've put the bucket now on the floor, and yes, here we go. We've got a nice flow of the wort going into the fermenter. This shouldn't take too long. It's only about 9 litres. And what's good inside here, the other side of the tap, there's like a downward spout. There you go. Just tilt this to see if we can get as much of that wort in as possible. And there it is. And that's it. Brew day's finished. Right, I'm just shy of the 20 litre mark, which is what they ask for. I'm at 19, but what's the temperature? That's the important bit. It's at 34. That would have been great if I was making Kvike, but I'm not. So I'll top this up to 20. That'll take it probably down to about 30 degrees. Another 2 litres. And I'll let that come down over the next few hours to pitching temperature, so about 20 degrees. Basically what I'll do is I'll seal everything up, I'll put my airlock in. My airlock is here, that's already been sanitised. And that's it. I'll leave it to come down to pitching temperature, and then I will pitch the yeast. And the yeast I'm using is Nottingham. So you had a selection, 3 different yeasts. 2 of them were liquid yeast. I like dry yeast. They're just very easy. So I will, once it's come down to pitching temperature, I will pitch the yeast. So that's it. Brew day's finished. Stop the clock. Well, it's taken me just over 2 hours. That's because of camera work, which takes up longer than you think. You know, first take, second take, third take. Getting angles set up, and of course I've been playing around with using my mobile to get some B-roll of the actual inside of the kettle. But it's been 2 hours, just over. But that also includes cleaning up. I've cleaned the brew kettle. I've also given it a spray with Star San. So everything is finished now. All I've got to do is wait for this to come down in temperature. It's all sealed. Everything's sealed. I've got Star San already in the airlock. Although in the instructions it does say, you know, just to leave one side of the lid open, open fermentation. But I like my airlocks, so I've put Star San in that. It'll sit out here now because it's chilly out here. What is it? It's not too bad today. It's 18, but still warmer than indoors. So I'll leave it out here for a few hours. Let that temperature come down to pitching temperature, and that's it. And then in about 10 days I might add some finings to this, because it's meant to be the copy of a commercial beer, so I might add some finings to it, leave them for a couple of days, and then I'll bottle, and they'll stay in the bottles for about 10 days, 2 weeks. I'll put some in the fridge and we can do a side by side with the commercial version. So there you go, it's as easy as that. I hope you've liked the video. I hope you found it interesting, educational, you know, when I explain step by step what we're doing and why we do things the way we do when we extract brew. And if you're a kit brewer, then maybe you should think about giving this a go. I've given you the recipe, the weights of the hops and the malt, and it only uses 1 malt, just 1 light dry malt extract, 3 kilograms, that's all you need. So there's no messing around with specialty grains. A nice easy beer actually, if it's your first extract brew, because it's just 1 malt and it's just a few hops, 3 different types of hops. Give it a go if you're a kit brewer and you want to just up your game a little bit. You know, you've done a few hop teas and dry hopping, but you want to up your game a little bit more. This is a good start, and it's a nice simple brew to start with. Similarly, if you're an all grain brewer, you know, but you just want to save a bit of time, I think if it wasn't for all the camera work, I'd have probably got this finished in 1 hour 45 minutes. That's a huge saving compared to all grain brew day, because of that mash that we don't have to do. So yeah, you know, even if you're an all grain brewer, give this method a go. I think you'll be very, very pleased, if not surprised, at how good the beers turn out. Then again, you know, even kit beers today, if you brew them correctly, you keep your temperatures under control whilst it's fermenting, and you give it the time it needs, the yeast, to do its work. A lot of kits today are commercial quality beers. Well, the Woodfords, for example, Woodford's Wherry, I mean, that was absolutely spot on. That would be very difficult to tell just on a blind taste test which was commercial, which was kit. But yeah, that's extract brewing. Hope you've enjoyed the video. And in 20 days, 30 days, we'll do a taste test. So thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure. And you know what? 5 o'clock today, when the shop's open again, I may just go and get a Proper Job and have that as my Sunday evening beer. See you again in the next video. Bye bye for now.